Okay, so we went ahead and got this stream going. Let me get you guys a link for the stream URL. Again, if you guys follow the live stream, it allows you to pause and go back. And you guys told me that you like that. So I will go ahead and post this in the Discord chat so you can follow along live or be able to pause if you're following the stream. What I'm going to tinker around with is adding a React app with a theme to the demo project that we had here called Tail Runner. And so there is this Tail Runner does have a GitHub repo that if you guys want to kind of start where I'm starting from, here's the URL for that Tail Runner, which, as you guys know, kind of has a login system for a backend, authorization, authentication. It's got a Mongo database, Express web application. So we're just sticking true to that MERN stack. And so here's my local repository, and I'll kind of boot that up. And it does have a front end already that we've kind of tinkered around with. But I'll probably, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to more or less rebuild that. And so if we kind of look at all the routes and Express, what's going on in this Express app, let me kind of zoom in on my code. Of course, this is all backend code. And then what I have in this front end would be my React app. And this front end, we're gonna kind of redo. We're gonna pretend like that front end folder doesn't exist. And so this is just one random, call it blog post. It's actually from several years ago with React templates and themes. Now, like anything else, you can find a million of these out there. You can find a million blog posts. You can find a million React template sites. And, my first thought here is, okay, this is already 4 years old. But nonetheless, I've kind of shared this. And so I just wanted to use this as an example. And so if you scroll through here, again, there's 35 of these and they have live demos. Let's click the live demos, and I guess you might start with just looking at a bunch of sites and saying, well, what makes the most sense for mine to look like? This is doing your research, if you will. Some of these links, sure, they're going to crash. Because it's a lot of dashboards. Well, I don't know that we have a dashboard, right? So a lot of these dashboards you could probably skip. And of course, you could use this one particular blog post, or you could use just do your own Google search for a blog post. So, point is, open a bunch of React templates and find one that you like. This is a clean looking site. I like the fonts, I like the icons. I like the clean look. Maybe we do something like that. This is the one that yesterday, you kind of got this darker looking theme one. You got this lighter theme one. So if you go to the first one, you're like, oh, I like that one. I want to kind of theme my site to look like it. You can click on the download button, and you'll see that this is a GitHub repo. And you could clone that repo. Let's just quick, like, okay, let's clone it. All right, so here's the local repo. Let's open that up with VS Code. And Oh, look, we got some Tailwind in here. We got some TypeScript in here. We got our components. This TSX is TypeScript. If I look at the package JSON, there's our scripts to kind of run this, right? So if we want to get this running locally, we could start a new terminal. And the important thing here is to download the dependencies, so npm install, or npm I for short. And it has its own little auth system that you could dive into. It's got a utils folder. Takes a minute to install these dependencies. Get the Jeopardy music going. I've seen many memes about the npm install command and like the dependencies and basically the rush of files that you download. It's a programmer humor thing because you like download a lot of stuff. Okay, 169 packages, 170. Okay, I don't know that I'm going to use this. I'm just kind of showing like a process that you could use. Okay, so here's a React template that we could use. Now we have this node modules folder. When we did the npm install, that wasn't there before. And again, the scripts to run this, if I open up my package JSON, where are you at? Where are you at? I'm blind. Oh, right there. So we got a dev script and a production script. Okay, so we're in dev mode. So if we do npm run dev, and you can see Next.js. So Next.js is built on top of React. We click it open.
They made a folder when you did that.
I'm sorry?
They made a folder when you did that. When you did this. That's true.
And okay, so now we've got a front end. Let me see what you were saying, Tim. You said it made a folder. It made a next folder. Okay. So, you know, I don't know that I would recommend to you guys bringing this in because there's a lot of stuff that we haven't covered. But however, you know, this is part of what I was saying earlier. It's like, hey, go outside of what you've learned in class and see what you can add to. So maybe this isn't the best example of a template because there's a lot of stuff that, frankly, myself included, haven't touched in here. But okay, simple enough to kind of get this folder up and running. Let's kind of close this down. I'm gonna go back here and there's a build script. So just like in React, we learned the command npm run build. And we know that kind of gets a production build. And in a React app, it makes a dist folder. So let's let this compile and do all the things. Generating static pages. maybe this is where it gets a little bit different, because in a React app there is a dist folder. So where then does the static, oh, public, yeah, public, let's see, so we got root, not found, API hello, we got these different routes, front end routes. Let me see. I guess option number one is that now that we've got these different components, we could literally drag and drop them into our React app. Now, at a bare minimum, we're not making TypeScript, but do we not have components that we can drag and drop over? And where's all the CSS? Of course, we need the CSS to be brought over as well. Yeah, let me start with the components and okay, here's footer. Matt, I heard you say something, but I didn't.
No, I said maybe it's under wrap.
Under. Okay, so here's the .next folder. Here's some static.
There's a CSS right there.
So here's, I think this static folder is what was generated. Ultimately, that build script did that. Okay. But what I've demonstrated is getting this run locally, right? So obviously this site has a very unique look. It's got a dark theme and purple buttons and all this kind of jazz. And as we inspect it, we've got these different classes and all this CSS applied to it, obviously. So where is this CSS? I mean, it's not just all these class names, inline flex, shrink 0. So what we have to do is find the component that links to some CSS. So kind of up top, but what I'm looking for is the root. So this is me just tinkering around, obviously. These are just different individual ones. Here's app. There we go. Just needed the app folder. There's some CSS. Now we're looking at, now we're cooking. So here we're linking to additional styles, theme. Okay. So there's some animation things, utility patterns. There's a bunch of CSS that's brought in. If you look at style CSS, all these other CSS files are loaded. Okay, now, so here's a template. Certainly looks good. If I wanted to theme my site with this, my first thought is to just kind of cut and paste the useful stuff. I mean, cut and paste components. Okay, so here I'm back on Tailrunner, and I've got this front end that is React. It's not Next.js. That would be very manual, like trying to find all the dependencies, all the CSS files that you need. Remember on our Express backend, we served up a front end like this, express.static front end dist, right? This is a React app, and this is if I go cd front end and I run that build script just like I did in that next app, we're going to do npm run build. I need to do an install here as well. But I guess my first point is, if you wanted to theme your site, then what do? You cut and paste the components, you cut and paste the CSS that's needed. Step one is to find the right theme. Probably for us, this is not the right theme because this is built on Next.js and TypeScript. So it might be a little bit too much of what's different. This next one looks pretty cool though. Let me look at Atomize. So if I go back here, the second one, Atomize is a React framework design to help developers cooperate and design and build consistent, harmonious user interfaces without effort. Okay. Thanks to a perfect combination of resources, style guides, flexible grids, beautiful React components, design system for websites and responsive apps, full control to create. So let's see if we click download here. Also takes us to a GitHub. Take a look at this one as well. As I'm multitasking in my brain and hopping around. So we just did a build. Anyways, I guess what I was getting at is, if I go back to here and I run start dev, this is running our backend, and our backup serves a static file out of the front end dist. So if I refresh this, I did not run my, I didn't do the cd front end. I did an npm install, and after the install, then you got to do a build script, npm run build. So you got to run this build script. Now there's a dist folder. Aha, now there's a dist folder, now there's a dist folder. Now if I run the back end, npm run start dev. Okay, serves up that front end folder, click on that. Okay, so this is whatever our front end is, right? And so this is what's coded in our React app right now. And to hop back, as I say, if I were to individually cut and paste components and cut and paste CSS from this theme over into my React app, I can make that work. I don't know if that's what I want to do. The other thought is, I've got another folder here called Open React Template, and we did find some static files that, if we could do the same thing in a Next.js app where we have a static index file that I could serve up from the back end, then what I'm saying is I could just take this whole folder that I cloned, and I could just point our back end at that dist folder. So let me dig around a little bit more in here and see if I can't find, because again, what I did over here on Tailrunner is I made this dist folder, and here's an index.html file. And this is kind of what you point the back end at to say, serve up this index.html. But as I'm newer to Next.js, I ran the build script over here, and I got to find that index HTML. And so let me do a control F. I wonder if in Explorer, if there's like a control F find. You would think that there would be find.
Maybe find in files.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's in the files. You know what I mean? In the files, not the file name itself. I think. Oh, here we go. Okay. So next, which by the way, .next for a folder name, not a fan, but regardless. Here's some static files not found. There's index. So let's reveal in File Explorer. So .next server. App. No, was it pages or app did we see? There's my index HTML, which appears under this app folder. So as I'm in the app folder here, there's index.html. So my relative path is next server app. .next, which I hate a folder that has a dot in it. It's a terrible name. Makes me feel like I shouldn't be coding in it. Why is that the case? I don't know. Let me go back to my terminal, and it does say route app. See, the route is app.
Wasn't there an app folder outside of .next?
Was there? Yes. There is an app folder here.
Is that what you're trying to do?
Maybe.
I had the CSS file on.
But there's not the index HTML. Wait a minute. Here's app. Default, no. See, that didn't have the static HTML. You know what I mean? Back at the terminal, it does say route is app. Okay, so let me see how smart my chat is. Chat has been moved. Copilot. We're going to see what Copilot knows. At workspace. This is kind of a cool, if you're into these Copilot extensions, at workspace has your Copilot analyze all your files in your workspace versus like an individual file. So that's one little helpful command for Copilot. Say, hey, looking at I ran a build script in my Next.js app, and I'm not sure where the static files were created in the folder structure. Can you tell me the folder that the static files are in? And maybe this is a great answer, and maybe this is terrible. That's how AI goes. They are located in the next directory. All right. Well, we did get that answer. So that's where we found them. Next. dot next, cache server static, you would think static, types, next server app. Next server app. Okay, so I think we're going to try this. I think we're going to try and point our backend at this index HTML, which requires me to close this and close this. This is our tail runner. Okay, so here's our Next.js. I'm going to rename this to Next. So we'll call it Next Front End. All right, we got a front end folder, and now we've got a Next front end folder. And I'm just going to cut and paste the whole thing in. I'm going to put it right inside of my tail runner. So I've got a front end folder, which is built in React, and I've got a Next front end, which is built in Next.js. Remember, Next.js is an evolution of React. Okay. And the big difference there is, if you guys remember, React is it's like client-side rendering. All of the processing, a lot of the processing happens on the client side, whereas Next is server-side rendering. So like the advantages there were search engine optimization and depending on your situation, faster load times. Okay, so there's Next front end. And now I'm just kind of curious, if I open up my tail runner back here, kind of close front end, we got Next front end. So we kind of refresh that. Okay, there's Next front end, and safe to say we can kind of close it down in here, clear the screen, and I'm going to go cd next front end, and I'm going to run that script, which again is the dev script, npm run dev. Which gets me running on localhost 3000. Oh, it's still starting. Ready, compiling. Might have jumped the gun on that. Let's close it down. Let's close it down. Okay, maybe I'm just waiting for nothing. Okay, so now it's in the different folder, but it's still kind of the same deal. Okay. Now what? And again, I don't recommend this. I do recommend you guys just finding a React template, not a Next template. And this process would be a little bit more familiar with like that dist folder versus this .next folder. So what I'm going to try and do, now I'm going to try and get my backend to serve up the right front end. So this is no longer front end dist. This is Next front end with a capital F. And then it becomes .next. And so, I'm not exactly sure where I need to point it. Like if I'm using IntelliSense, serve the next front end. Yeah. Serve static files from the static directory. It kind of makes sense to go /static. But what I said was servers /app Where did they go? Are you paying attention to this? Am I crazy?
I'm lost.
Well, and let's go tail runner, next front end, dot next, server, app. This is where those files were at until I cut and paste them. They didn't transfer over. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run that build script again and see if for whatever reason they didn't come over. So let me back out here. Are you just lost because the files were missing, or why?
I'm just like,
What?
I don't know where the, it's just not missing.
Yeah. So the build script is next. So we're going to do npm run build. Run this build script again. So I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole, and maybe the answer is you don't pick a template with the next front end. Maybe you just stick to what the class is, which is React. But I was just trying something because I wanted to try it, and that's how you learn. Try new things. Okay, so now that build process is done. So I'm going to go next server app, and now my files are back there. Okay, so next server app seems to be correct. I'm going to save that. cd ... npm run start dev backend. So now I'm booting up my backend, and I'm trying to serve up the files, the static files in my next app front end. All right. You want your pages to look like this? Me either, but we're whoa. Obviously, we're missing some CSS. So maybe my path isn't, like if I used IntelliSense here or .next, I don't, so there's also a public. That doesn't seem to make sense. I mean, normally that's where static files goes, is under public. So I'm just going to try the .next folder. We're just going to try a couple different things here and see what works, if anything. Okay, that doesn't work. When you get this is just like the default route. That certainly doesn't work. There's no HTML files there. So the .next folder didn't work. Next static CSS. Okay, so I'm just going to try a couple. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying something new and not exactly sure.
What if you do just the next front end folder?
What if I do what? Next front end dist?
Yeah.
Well, there is no next
Well,
front end.
No, like just the next front end folder.
As
Like just that.
next front end, like that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Well, again, so I think what you have to do is point this at a static HTML file. And I think anything that doesn't have a static HTML file in it is not going to work. And that's kind of what, and so that's why I was looking for that HTML file, and I found it under .next. So like even under here, there's a static, and it's like, well, chunks Okay, pages. This is all JavaScript, all JavaScript. So chunks app, default, it's all JavaScript. So yeah, I don't know enough about Next.js, which is why I'm struggling here. Which is fine, because all I really did is I put this whole folder, this next front end folder, and I'm trying to use it, and it's not going my way. So take a step back, and instead of continuing down the rabbit hole, let's look at another one. So if I were to click download, okay, let's take a look at this. Atomize, we'll call it Atomize. Let's clone it. Okay, so there's Atomize. And let's open that up with code and start looking at this one. Terminal, new terminal. Let's look at the source. Ooh, there's a lot here. So package JSON. Let's do install. Okay, this seems a little more up our alley. I don't like getting all this deprecated. Yeah. Okay, package JSON. Let's just start this thing up. npm run start. That doesn't get you very far, does it? Well, I thought I'd start off today by showing something that I haven't tried before, and I thought I was going to be able to figure it out. And that's coming to a conclusion where the first two things I've tried have not worked out. And like I initially said, so this is an old React template site, and so when I am using an old one, of course, I guess the sign that this was not successful is that it hasn't been updated in 5 years. So that should have been free themes. I'm going to stick to one that's React. So Material UI, and I've dabbled with Material UI. It's just another, with Bootstrap, you can theme your site, and there's Material UI, which I believe was a Google product. Material Design is a design language developed by Google in 2014. So it's like, well, you kind of theme your site, and a lot of times you can go to a website and you could tell if it was a Bootstrap site because it just has a certain kind of look. And so if you want more of like a Google look and feel as opposed to a Bootstrap look and feel, that's where you can use Material UI. Let's scroll just a little bit more.
Yeah, I was looking into Material UI a bit yesterday. It just seems like a lot to install.
Yeah.
Like it's like huge.
Yeah. Big dependency. Well, and so right away, this is just a Bootstrap kit, and it's Bootstrap 4. Well, Bootstrap's on 5, so I don't want to do a Bootstrap 4 thing, even though that looks good. It's just I don't want to do a Bootstrap 4 thing. Dashboard, next. So I was looking for a specific, like a React theme. Because I thought it would be easier, and now I'm... Bootstrap 4. Well, whoever this Tim guy is, he's got apparently a bunch of Bootstrap 4 stuff. So let's go down. Okay, this looks a little more up to date. React and Tailwind. Next.js. Landy. TypeScript. Oh, we've seen this one before. So this idea of like having a bunch of pre-built components that already had a theme on them. Chakra? Dark mode. Let's look at this one.
You can install that as a dependency, right?
It does look like you can. right, I'm going to, I was trying something different. Looking for a React template is failing me, but Bootstrap 5 templates free. This is a process that I have done, and I can demonstrate bringing in a standard Bootstrap template, maybe a little bit easier. And so this next front end, I'm going to kind of get rid of that because that didn't work out for me. And I probably could have stuck with it and figured it out eventually, but we don't have all day. And if I just close this, let's see if it's going to delete. The easy answer that I have taught and is part of this class before, the easy answer is just to theme your Bootstrap site. And so these are just themes, colors, palettes, if you will, for your Bootstrap pages. And so I can demonstrate that. Let's close. A lot of files. So this is going to be a package, boot swatch package. So npm I boot swatch. So let's let this delete finish. It's almost finished. Cool. So now we can reopen up Tailrunner. We still have a standard React front end. So if I kind of put this back to what it was, front end / dist, and I do npm run start dev script on the back end. There we go. So that is a React front end, and gonna install boot swatch. You guys have been watching me for 45 minutes and nothing's worked yet, but I'm about to get something to work. So thank you for your patience. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna cd into my front end folder, and I'm gonna install boot swatch. So that's the dependency for React. Then I'm gonna pick a boot swatch theme, which is morph. Because I think that looks good, and this is probably, you know, the easiest way to get your site looking a little different. There's another thing that I've done, which is actually using a Bootstrap template. So this is a Bootstrap theme versus a Bootstrap template, where it's like, hey, I actually want to use, you know, I want my site to look like this. You know, where you're getting these images, you're getting these buttons. That's a separate process, getting a templated. I've done both of those things. Whether it's, you know, this is one that's super easy to work with, real basic Bootstrap front end. So it's like, hey, I want to get this page into my React app. And that's something else I've done. So theming versus like an actual template. But I'm doing this example of theming, and if I kind of back out here, and now I'm going to look at my front end package JSON, and I now have boot swatch. There's this script here, and this is useful for everyone. So if you're on my screen share, check this out. So I've got the dev script, right? You guys are very used to the dev script, which is just to kind of run your front end. But there's also this build auto, which, you know, anytime you make a change to your source code, then you have to regenerate your dist folder with a vite build command. So this build auto, what it does is anytime you change your source code, it automatically will do a build. So I added this script. And so if I do npm run build :auto, now let's just say I go into my components here, and I change my source code, whatever it may be, pet owners, and I save. Notice it kind of rebuilds my front end. So that's super nice, that little build auto script. So then you can open up a new terminal and run the back end, npm run start dev. And now there's pet owners. If I go back to my source code, put a couple S's on it, save it, and you see it automatically do and then you just refresh, and so that's minifying the number of times you need to do that build. So I did install a dependency on the front end called boot swatch. Just kind of looking at the the thing here, all you're really doing with Bootswatch is you're replacing the standard Bootstrap CSS with a different CSS file. That's really all you're doing. And so you'll notice here I'm importing a specific theme. So this is the different themes. And so you could replace theme with Darkly or Cosmo. And so we just need to kind of do this import at a global, you know, at a global, maybe here up in the app JSX. Notice right here is my import for Bootstrap. So this is my normal Bootstrap import. And now I'm going to change this import. Okay, and obviously I have to replace my theme. What theme did I choose? I chose morph. So I'm going to replace the word theme here with morph. And save it. It does a build. I go back here and refresh, and I got a theme. Okay, so if you guys were zoned out, I'm going to encourage you to zone back in, because there was some broken stuff. I'm not going to lie. I tried something new and it didn't work. Okay, but this is something I've done many times. Okay, this is real simple to get a theme, a Bootswatch theme, of which there are many. Okay, and again, all we're really doing here is installing this Bootswatch as a dependency, npmi Bootswatch. Okay, when you do that, inside of node modules on your front end, there is now a Bootswatch folder right here that has a bunch of different themes with their own CSS files. So then all you have to do is replace your import of Bootstrap CSS with one of these Bootswatch CSSs. And so again, it just kind of boils down to pick a theme. And if you want quartz, you just change one word, save it. I go back here, refresh, and get quartz. And then if I were to kind of, let's just say, go to getbootstrap.com and I go to the docs and I want a nav bar. I mean, everything obviously is themed. So I go to my nav bar, copy the source code for my nav bar, and here's kind of my root up here. And let's just throw in like a nav bar. Maybe I even make a nav bar component, right? So here's a component, add navbar.jsx. And I like to make my components okay, so const navbar, I believe export default navbar. Kind of have, this is called a React fragment, and paste in my navbar. And then I have to change all these class variables. I think you guys have seen this now. I have to replace it with class name, because class is a reserved word in JavaScript. And you could replace all, but sometimes that's dangerous too. So I just do it. Oh, undo it. Okay. So
class equals and then replace it with class name equals, so that doesn't ever do like
oh, smart. Yeah. Okay, then the next thing is typically there are some like horizontal rules that everything has to be self-closing, so you can't leave off the forward slashes on any like inputs or HRs or BRs or anything, images that are self-closing. Okay, so kind of save all that. Okay, so then we come back over here and we have to import our navbar. And import navbar from components navbar. And let's bring in nav bar. Save that. Did that kind of quick. Now pet owner form. I think I exported it a little differently. I did. So that should come back here and refresh. Save. Refresh. It should give us a nav bar. Where'd the nav bar go? Oh, I know. I need the return statement. You just don't have. See that right there? I'm missing return. Da 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 da. So use effect, handle submit. There's our return. Inside of the return is where we've got everything there. I was just missing the return. There we go. Now I got a nav bar. And that nav bar is themed like whatever that was, quartz. So that's a nice, easy way to get something looking a little bit different. Okay, I would call that step one, right? Step one is being able to apply a theme to your stuff. Step two, I'm like, okay, this can make for some pretty easily to make your site look different. Pretty easy to make your site look different by applying a theme. I still don't think that these look necessarily great, because what makes a good-looking website in a lot of cases, like the easiest way to make a good-looking website is with images and fonts. Like images and fonts and maybe some animations. Like those three things make, and well, I say images, and part of your images are your icons. Like you want to make a website that's like, wow, that looks good. Get good images, good icons, good fonts. Like those are like, bar none, the easiest thing to do. And while themes make your site look a little different, they don't necessarily have good images. They don't necessarily have unique fonts, all that great, and so they're lacking. That's why I like templates. Okay, so now finding a good template is kind of the next thing that I wanted to kind of show here. And I'm going to see if I can do this in the next, if I could do this in the next 30 minutes, and then I'll be done and I'll let you guys on your way to work on the lab. Henry, what's the one that you used? What's the template site?
Bootstrapmade.com.
Bootstrap Made. And are these free or you pay for them?
It's free if you just want to use it for like your own personal project.
Okay. So like,
Yeah, I looked at it yesterday. Like, give you options for some of them.
like to me, a template like this looks a heck of a lot better than just a basic theme. It's got images. It's got, just even images. It's got some hover effects. Its font is probably, sans serif. People put a lot of time and effort into colors, time and effort into fonts that are the most readable, most attractive. It's got this hover effect. Like, this is really nice. Getting that hover effect to be brought in, that's obviously some scrolling. So like, let's just download this. Let's quick start free download. Okay, so we're just downloading this quickstart.zip. And we need to extract it so we're not inside of a zipped folder. Okay, real basic HTML. So now this is local, right? This is on my local file system versus what we were looking at was online. Now, you know, a lot of what you guys are doing in the final project is working on forms, you know, so maybe it makes sense to kind of look at the contact. Well, looking at this is all one page, right? And you're just using these links that make you jump to the different parts of the page. These fragments is what they're called. So back into here, you know, we might open this up just in VS Code. And now we're back in first year and we're looking at some raw HTML. So how might you begin to get this into React? Well, there's an assets. Inside assets, you're going to have CSS, images, JavaScript. So definitely you want to bring over the assets folder. And then we have to use what we learned. They're using some Google fonts here, some fave icons there inside of assets. So our style sheet is main CSS. It's inside of assets. You can see the relative link right here to the CSS file. You can see this is up to date, Bootstrap 5.3.3, August 7th. That's a nice up-to-date Bootstrap site. So the big thing here is main CSS. That's going to get a lot of things brought over. Of course, we also need the JavaScript links to get some of those .js. So down here, again, more inside of the assets folder, we got some form validation. We got some of this stuff we might use, some of it we might not. There's those scrolling effects are going to be, you know, all these JavaScript files down here, the main JavaScript file here. So definitely want to link to these JavaScript files and definitely want to link to those CSS files. And then you start bringing it over piece by piece. So let me minimize this. I'm going to go into quick start. And I'm going to start by copying the assets. I'm going to copy and paste assets into tail runner front end. And I'm going to go assets right here. Okay. These are assets. Now I'm going to open up. Let me kind of close this down, close this down. Now, okay, so I don't want boot swatch, right? So I'm going to kind of Control Z on this file just to get back my regular Bootstrap CSS, since I'm not using that theme anymore. And I'm going to open up index.html. Okay, now we've got index.html, which has a subfolder of assets. So these relative links should still have this same pathing. Now I just want to see that my IntelliSense is going to pick up. Yeah, assets, vendor, okay. So all I'm doing is I'm porting over those files and I'm porting over the relative links in my index HTML. I'll do the same thing. I'll do the same thing for the favicons and the fonts. Because again, that's all part of it. Obviously, I said fonts are a big deal and icons are a big deal. And then, like I said, we want to kind of pull in the JavaScript. We'll get these. This is part of the markup. Preloader. Okay, here's the actual links to the JavaScript, which go just before the closing body. So right down here, there's the closing body. And there's some. Now, what are you not happy about? Build started. Can't be bundled without type of module. Okay, so maybe that'll make this little warning happy. And maybe that won't break anything. Maybe it will. So save. Now I'm building. Okay, so it says consider some other things. Okay. I'm okay with that for now. Okay. So now I've kind of got some of that brought over. Now what I'm going to do is refresh here and I'm kind of back. I do see my font looks different right off the bat. So my CSS is kind of being picked up here. If I inspect that, that's definitely a different font. Yeah, what's up, Ben?
Jacob messaged me on Discord. He said your live stream is on kids. He wanted you to know that you have it streaming on kids
Oh,
thing. So
thanks, Jacob.
thought we would tell you.
That's funny. It says, careful, YouTube could give a strike. Huh? Oh, oops.
I guess that's why he was wanting to let you know.
That's funny.
You're happy with it, you know.
Well,
Probably one of the worst features of YouTube that can just decide when things are for kids.
so if I'm streaming for kids and it's adult content, I mean, it's not like risky content, but it's also not kids.
Yeah.
I just didn't check the right button. Is it going to be a strike? I don't know.
I guess that there's just a chance that they could possibly give you a strike.
Yeah.
So just in case.
Okay, right on. Well,
What I know, like YouTube kind of like can automatically somehow detect if something should be on YouTube Kids. Like even if you say it, it's not.
interesting.
Sometimes just slap it on there anyway.
Interesting.
I don't know why it does that.
Well, we definitely got some CSS going, and just to double check myself, like if I just comment out these CSS files, and so if I were to just highlight this, comment those out, highlight that, comment that out, and save, and then refresh, you see that the fonts are changing, right? So our relative CSS links are working. Okay, and then what? So now we want to actually like make our site, you know, if we want to bring in some of the images and whatnot. Images, it's not exactly a copy paste job. So what do we do? Let's start with, I would start with the header. That makes sense, right? So let's go up to the top. Here's a hero section, here's a main, here's a header. Okay, so we got this nice big header. It's got a bunch of classes on it. Let's just copy the header. And let's get it into React. And so close that down. Here's a source, components, got a nav bar. Let's say header JSX, const header, export default header. Don't forget the return keyword. Okay. And then we paste. Okay, our images have to be self-closing. Our class has to be class name. You said that the good trick is class equals.
Yeah. And then do class name equals as well. Like when replacing.
And then replace is class name equals.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So now you just hit replace all.
And then no issues.
And then no issues. So let's save our header JSX. Now I do think that these images aren't going to work out of the box, but I can show you a fix for that. At least we got a header now. So we got a header component. Remember that each component has to have its own root element. So there's export default header. So now we're going to go to app.jsx, and I'm going to import header from header.jsx. And if I tab over, it just suggests header. Okay. Looks pretty familiar, huh? Looks suspiciously familiar.
Yeah.
You know, shall we continue? Now, what's missing before we continue? What's missing? Quick start is missing the image. Remember I said the images. It's missing that Q. So if I go back into my header, this image right here, the logo.png, images can be you can import an image as an element, and then in the image source you link to it. When you boot up a Bootstrap template by default or a React template by default, they do this. Their images, they show you the code for that. So it's something like import, import the image from import a logo from something like this. Now, where is the logo? Well, the logo is in /assets. So let's find the relative path to that logo. Oh, by the way, this has to be in the header. This is the wrong cut. Let's get this in the header. Okay, from assets, so we have to go up a directory, and then we can get to assets, and then so that took us to the source directory. So that's not the right assets folder. We have to go up 2, and then we can get to assets, and then we can get to images, and then where is it at? Assets, image logo, logo.png. Okay, and then what you do is you replace this source with logo. And says it's not exported, which makes sense. Okay, let's see if we can just give it the relative path that we gave above. Dot dot slash, dot dot slash. Yeah, this image problem. So we're in header. We go up a directory to source, up another directory to assets. Down the image. And there's logo.png that we're trying to get to. I've solved this before. Sometimes I've solved it with an import. Sometimes I give it relative pathing. Neither of which is working right now. This is the last problem I'm going to solve, and then I'm going to shut up and let you guys code. One second here. I know where I can look at a code demo. Let me look at something.
Oh wait, I think I know what it is.
What is it?
On your import, just try doing the path instead of the import. Well, like don't do import bracket logo, just do import and then path.
Oh, just to import logo like such.
No, like take out the logo in the front part.
Take out the word logo and the from part.
Yeah. Like that might work.
But then how do you use it down here?
I feel like I would just import that. Like since that's the path you're doing.
Yeah, but you need a variable. That's what I'm confused by. Hold on, give me a second. I think I.
I was just wondering if like you weren't calling the variable.
So is it? Even though I'm in the header JSX, I think the relative pathing you code from, maybe that's what it is. So even though I'm in there, let's see. Because really your component is your app JSX, where all this is getting loaded from. So you might, from app JSX, assets is just a subfolder. So the path here So what I do here is I'm going to inspect, and let's inspect the broken image, which is right here. And if I do a relative path assets image logo, this is what I did last time. So you're coding a relative path from the app JSX. Remember, this is kind of like everything's inside of app. So your relative path has to be from app JSX. And so assets is just a subfolder from there. So to reach the subfolder is assets, alt is broken logo. So we get broken logo. Let's just try a different one, feature. Now this is kind of interesting here that the logo file name inside of the dist folder is that. I don't love that. Yeah. Didn't make sense to me. That's not what I did. Okay, so that looks good. So slash assets. Oh, there is no slash. Oh, there's no slash image. It's just slash assets slash. Let's try that. Well, that was tedious. but I got my logo. And the answer there, what was this thing? Quick start. There must be a better solution to this. So when I saved, okay, my assets, you could see the relative file path and the relative file name inside of dist. So my relative file path became /assets/logo gibberish. So I just had to change my relative file path to that matched that. That's all it was. And that allowed me to get my image in there. Okay, couple of things that I tried that weren't working, but there were some working demonstrations. The easiest of which is getting a theme working, and the slightly more complicated, yet I think worth your time, is to get a template ported over for the look and feel of a whole template with images and logos and whatnot. And there's a lot of troubleshooting, as you can see, getting that front end to be coded correctly. But I'm going to go ahead and stop here and let you guys get coding for your lab. Yes, sir.
We be pushing this your code or not?